What is up, everybody? It's Libby. We are back. Living Intention Season 2. Let's go. This is officially the start of Season 2, okay? I am so excited to be restarting this podcast. I've settled into where I live now and work in Central America. I've been here for about a little over a year. And I wanted to continue this podcast throughout all of that, but let's be honest. Moving 3,000 miles away and uprooting yourself from everything you've ever known is really hard. And so to do a podcast amidst all of that, it was too much. And so obviously I didn't do that. But I've settled in here now a little bit more, Lord willing. So I think I'm in a good place where I can restart this podcast, and I'm excited too. And so I'm hoping to drop an episode every other week starting in February. So we'll see how that goes, but that's my goal. And then, like I said, my name's Libby. I'm a church planting missionary in Central America. I have a team down here that I'm a part of, and our goal is to plant a church with local leaders here. So what that means is, like, I won't be the college director. A local person here will be the college director, and I'll just help them. I will equip them. I will lead them. I could be their shepherd or, whatever. Or just stack chairs. And so that's my job here, and also kind of my life. They're very much intertwined, which I'm sure I'll have a segment about that or an episode about that this year. I think it'd be fun to talk to some other missionaries. So yeah, I hope to also have some special guests this season. We'll see how that works out, because I'm unsure of how to do that, both if they're in person or like online, like doing like a Zoom call. I don't know how that works. I'm gonna be honest. I'm technically challenged when it comes to that, but I'll figure it out. And then in person, if y'all are watching, ooh, I'm showing my mic. It's glowing in different colors, which I didn't know I was gonna do that, and it kind of annoys me. I'm not gonna lie, and I don't think there's a way to turn it off. But it's okay. Maybe I'll get used to it, or maybe I'll be so bugged by it that I'll buy another mic. Let's hope not, though. But I bought a new mic, so hopefully the sound quality, at least on Spotify, is better. I don't know how to connect it to my phone. Again, technologically challenged. So there's that. But moving on, I actually do have a little bullet point to try to keep myself on track for this episode. Isn't that crazy? So along those lines is I want to share some of the goals that I have for this year. And, everyone's like, New Year's resolutions, and it's the end of January by now, so people are over it. But they are New Year's resolutions, I'll confess. But I do think of them more as like goals, or like maybe intentions, or like focuses that I want to have for this year. So basically, I just don't want to put the pressure of like, if I don't do it, like if I fail, then, try again next year. Because I feel like sometimes that's like the idea of New Year's resolutions. I could be wrong or true on that. I don't know. But these are like my goals for 2026. So I have a couple. One of them is to pray without ceasing. And right then it's like, that is a lofty goal. And I will agree, it is. But what I mean by that is, in scripture, it says pray without ceasing. And everyone's like, at least growing up, I was kind of told that doesn't mean like literally, that just means to be very intentional of how you pray, which I think that is true. But I think it also can be literally. I think it can also quite literally be always be talking to God, like always be in communication with Him, pray without ceasing, because that's how much we need Him. And so this year, I really want to push myself to do that more. I feel like I don't, especially this last year, I could really rehash and talk about, maybe that'll be a whole nother episode, who knows, of like how I didn't pray enough. I wasn't relying on the Lord enough, and that really, you could see that through my prayer life. Like if you asked me how many times I prayed to the Lord, not asking for things or anything, just talking with Him, it was very few and far in between, which from previous years, it was like kind of a dip in my prayer life, I definitely will say. So I want to work and be more intentional about this year. Because last year, one of the things I learned was that I really need the Lord, like really need Him. Like every day, every hour, every minute, every second, every millisecond. And every day I forget that, unfortunately, so I have to relearn it. I feel like I'm definitely like a goldfish. Like every 3 seconds, I'm like, oh, I can do this on my own. And then I try and I'm like, oh no, I can't. I need the Lord. And then I go back and I'm like, oh, I can do this on my own. So that's one of my goals this year. And this month, I feel like I forgot about that. So I'm almost saying it again on this podcast to like say it out loud to remember. Anyway, so then one of my other goals is to be, they kind of go together. They both start with the word self. I want to be more self-controlled and more self-disciplined. Now, self-controlled and self-disciplined, I feel like right now I'm still learning what those mean. So I still need to do like more biblical research and more prayer about this. But to me, they're very similar. Like self-discipline to me is like things that I should do or get to do that I like need to regularly do, like prayer, like reading the word, like, having biblical conversations or godly conversations regularly because that feeds me, or that fills me up. And then like self-control is like resisting to me. I could be wrong on this, but this is all my opinion. But resisting, like not eating junk food all the time, or not, not being tempted, like when temptation comes, not falling into that sin, like being self-controlled. But then I'm also like, that's kind of self-discipline too, of like disciplining yourself not to fall in temptation. So I don't know. I need to do more research on those words. But those are two of my goals, because that's another thing that I realized. A lot of these goals I built on last year and what I was lacking in myself, honestly, and in my life. I've realized that I have little to none of self-discipline or control. I just kind of like, if I feel like I want to do it, I'll do it. Or if I don't feel like I want to do it, I won't do it. Without outside pressures. Like if it's just up to me, then I'm gonna do anything I want, which is not good. That's not a flex. Like when it comes to work or requirements of work, I'll for sure do those and stay within the boundary of those. I have no issues doing that. But when it comes to like me, when like my free time, I just do whatever I want in my free time. Like I'm not even like, oh, I should read this book. Even if like no one's pressuring me to, I just should, because it will grow my, perspective, or grow me intellectually. If I feel like, or if I don't want to do that in that moment, I won't, even if I kind of should, And so learning how to use my time wisely, that kind of goes in with these goals. And it takes a lot. I might know how to best use my time, but it takes for me a lot of self-discipline and self-control to not do what I want to do, which is maybe lie on the couch and watch Netflix or play my Switch games, or to take a nap or something, and instead, practice Spanish or watch a TV show in Spanish, or read a book or whatever, or to go out on a walk, or to exercise or work out, like all of that. I've seen that when I don't have a lot of structure in my life, it's hard for me to value my time and to use it wisely. That was really deep. We really just went in that, but that was good for me. I needed to say those things out loud. That's another one of my goals that I've had last year, and I just am continuing to have, that I think this podcast is kind of the challenge, or like I can only think of like the exercise, I guess, is that I want to be able to articulate like my self, my life, my thoughts better, but more importantly, articulate like how the Lord is working in my life. Like I'm making these goals because I really feel like I was convicted last year of like, you don't have any of these and you need to grow in these. Not just because you should, or like you're a Christian so you should do all this stuff, but more of like I do desire to be obedient to our God and to our Father, and I feel like this is the ways that I need to work on that, because from not growing these or not like growing in self-control and self-discipline, or like praying more, there's a lot of sin that reaps from the lack of those disciplines or the lack of those characteristics in me, which is not good. I don't want that. I don't want that in my life. I want to be an advocate for the Lord, and I think these disciplines or these values will help me do that and grow in that. Grow in being a daughter of the King is the goal. So, and I honestly know that I have another goal. Well, I know that it's on my whiteboard in my room, but I don't remember what it was. So, whoops, maybe next episode when after this I'll look over and see what it was because I genuinely don't remember. But yeah, maybe it was like, it might have been just to like work out more or something. I'm not really sure. But those are my goals. And so obviously then this podcast, like I said, is an exercise of a lot of these goals because I think it takes, for me, it's going to take a lot of self-discipline to prepare, or self-control and self-discipline and prayer, all three of those, to prepare for this podcast well, because other podcasts I prepared for like decently well, but some of them I really just kind of winged, which isn't bad because, you know, in life we have to sometimes just share our testimony on the fly or defend why we're believers like just right then and there. But I also think it's important to memorize scripture to pray. Oh, I think that was my other goal, to memorize more scripture. Anyway, and so the goal of this podcast for me is to be able to learn how to articulate how the Lord has worked in my life and who our God is too, like how to articulate both in English and Spanish, how to describe who the Lord is and what he's done, because that affects who we are and what we do. And also I think the reason, I wanted to kind of share like the reason why it's called Living Intention. I know I've shared this before, but to reiterate is I believe that Christians really tend to walk the tightrope in life. That might be a bad example. We live in a lot of tension, let's be honest, of whether that's we're in between political issues or in between friend groups at school or whatever. I always feel like, at least in my life, that a lot of the times I'm the middleman or the mediator or the person, just in between everything. And there's a lot of tension that comes with that. And I think that we're called to do that. Like that's, you could see it in a lot of different ways, but I, at least for me, I believe that I'm called to kind of live in this tension, and to kind of be the person in the middle, maybe extreme views or people with opposite views or whatever. And that can be really hard. And also there's just a lot of issues that are like, you know, there's the tension of, as believers, like self-control, self-discipline. Should I do this or should I do this? Or should I not do this and should I do this or whatever? You know, a lot of verses like, am I right? Am I wrong? Is this right? Is this wrong? That as believers we need to navigate. And it can be really hard at times and very challenging. And a lot of times I don't make the right decision in that. I'll confess that. And yeah, it's hard. That's why it's called this podcast is called Living Intention. And one of the first tensions that I experienced when deciding, not in life, just when deciding to do this podcast or not, was like, everyone and their mother and their brother's dog is doing a podcast right now. Like there's so much media just out in the world, so much social, like TikTok, Instagram, X, Facebook, like they all exist and are all thriving for their different, you know, groups. And it's just, there's like 50 million podcasts out there. It's just so much. And so I was like, what would I have to add to, or what would I add to this world? What would be beneficial? Or would it be beneficial? And, you know, I wrestled through that. And again, like I stated earlier, this podcast is a challenge to me. It's gonna kind of push me to have a deadline, to be prepared, to have that discipline of, maybe I don't want to prepare for this podcast, but I should, because I'm going to record the episode tomorrow or, you know, in a couple days. And hopefully it will provide for me a bit of structure as well, that I can kind of work my other things around, where it's like, well, I need to prepare for this podcast, so, you know, I better go work out before or go hang out with a friend before or whatever. Because in this job that I'm in, we don't really have that much structure. It's not a 9-to-5 job. Okay, that doesn't exist because we haven't planted or started our church yet. And so there's not even that deadline of like, oh, well, we got to be ready for Sunday or we got to be ready for Bible study or whatever. Yeah, there's none of that. We're still working to find those people who will help start the church. And so there's a lot of meeting with people, which can be, you know, anytime, any day. And listening to their stories, connecting with them, praying with them, or praying before meeting them, praying after meeting them, and really trusting that the Lord is guiding our team and me to the people he wants to start this church. So a lot of trust in the Lord, lots. And so this podcast kind of gives me structure for that. So there was a tension of like, will it actually give me structure, or will it be like burden? Am I going to overwork myself? Like there's a lot of like this side and this side, different perspectives of an issue of should I do it or should I not? And ultimately, I think that, we just need to trust in the Lord and pray that he'll guide us and give us wisdom on what we should spend our time with and shouldn't. Our life is a vapor. It goes really fast, even if it feels not that way. It truly is. And so I want to use my time wisely, because ultimately it's not my time. It's the Lord's time, because I'm a living sacrifice, even though sometimes I don't act like that, which is another confession. But yeah, and so I want to use my time wisely. Oh my gosh, there's a tiny little spider in front of me. Cute. Go over here, King. Yeah, okay. And lowercase k for King, by the way. But yeah, and I think this podcast hopefully will be a challenge to other believers, whether just to think through how the Lord's worked in your life, or how much you know about the Lord, not as like a test, but just be like, how much do I know about God? Like, yes, he's holy, but what does that mean? So yeah. And speaking of holiness a little bit, I'm going to share with you some of the books I've been reading. So hopefully then like in a couple months, I'll have other books that I'll be reading, or like maybe I'll like recap the book I read or something in an episode, because I don't want to end the year reading the same book. You know what I'm saying? So I'm reading this book. It's called Holier Than Thou by Jackie Hill Perry. Love her. I really love her book. What's it called? Gay Girl, Good God. That book is great, y'all. You should read it. I highly recommend it. It doesn't matter if you've struggled with same-sex attraction or not. I'm really getting into it. But it doesn't matter if you struggle with same-sex attraction or not. It's basically her testimony, and it's just such a beautiful thing. And yeah, I highly suggest reading that book. She also is a poet, and so the way that she writes is just beautiful. Like, it's very easy to read, but her words aren't always simple. Like, it doesn't mean that she wrote it at a 4th grade level. Like, it's very eloquent. Maybe it's kind of how I aspire to be. I don't know if I'll get there, because she definitely has a gift for words, but I hope to be more eloquent like her. But anyway, I'm reading this book. I'm not that far in. I don't even know if I passed the first chapter, to be honest. I'm gonna look right now. Please hold as I look. No, I haven't finished the first chapter. Whoops. So I'm gonna hopefully I'll finish the first chapter today. But that's a book I'm reading, and it's about, I'll read the little bit back. It says, if God can't sin, then he can't sin against you. If he can't sin against you, shouldn't that make him the most trustworthy being there is? That's good. That's good. So we're reading, I don't know why I always say I'm reading this book, and to help me just understand the character of God's holiness. Like, what does it mean what does holiness mean? Or what does holy mean? And what does it mean when we say God is holy? For me, like growing up in the church, I've always heard that God is holy. If y'all know the hymn from the red hymnal, Holy, 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 shout out. I don't know who wrote that song, but it's a good song. But we would sing it a lot in the church growing up that I grew up in. And I feel like I'm almost numb to like what the word holy means. So I want to like relearn that and realize what that means. The other book I'm reading with my team is called Ministering in Honor Shame Cultures by Jason Gregors and Mark Baker. Okay. This is a great book. I actually need to read the next chapter before our team meeting in 2 hours, so I need to lock in. But this is a great book. Even if you're in the States, all cultures have aspects of like law and honor shame and power and yada, yada, yada. If y'all are interested in that, maybe I'll do a podcast on like cultural values, even though I'm not the expert in that, so maybe I shouldn't. I don't know. But this book is great. It talks about honor and shame. And guess what, y'all? Guess what book was written in basically all honor shame cultures? That a book really important to Christians, really important, y'all. I'm showing it to you. The Bible, y'all. The Bible is written in honor shame context, okay, y'all? All the writers are from honor shame cultures. That doesn't mean that the culture only values honor shame. There is laws, and there's they value other things, but one of their bigger cultural values is honor and shame. And I was just reading in chapter 3 of this book. It's really good. It's a really long chapter, and I need to like sit in it. That's why I took a break to record this podcast, because it's a lot. But it talks about like how in the Old Testament, or how in the Bible, there's this narrative pattern of guilt to innocence, like how the Lord redeems us basically, and makes us white as snow, cleans us. But there's also a second narrative pattern from shame to honor, which is crazy. And how like maybe at the beginning a person does have honor, but then is shamed. And then how God redeems them through honoring them, which brings honor and glory to him. And at least in the United States, we don't talk, at least the churches I grew up, not trying to roast, but just like we didn't talk about in depth. We've talked about honor and shame, but not in depth biblical stories and how they're a reflection of like honor and shame cultures. For example, in the book, it talks about the story of Ruth and Boaz. And I've always read that story and just been like, yeah, he redeems her and it's beautiful, and he saves her family from like, first world problems of like hunger and thirst and shelter. So like that is a huge blessing for her and for her family. And then they can continue their like family lineage, which leads to the King of David. Hello. But what I didn't realize of how much there are like shame and honor is interwoven, is ingrained in this story. And so this book really gives light to that, and it's really good. I highly recommend reading it. Again, I don't care if you are a missionary or not, or maybe this is a new statement. I don't care if you're a missionary or not. Guess what? If you're a believer, if you're a son or daughter of the King, you are a missionary, okay? Just like me. Same as me, really. And I think this book is so good. I haven't even finished it, but I'm already recommending it to you. I think it's really important. Maybe you don't have to read this whole book, but at least look up articles about honor and shame cultures, or like even how honor and shame plays in the Bible, because it's really good, y'all. And I think it just gives a whole new perspective of how our God redeems us and what it means to honor and glorify our God. Just because we don't focus on honor and shame in the United States, we focus more on the guilt and innocence narrative, but it's really important to read the Bible holistically, and it'll take all of our lives to read it holistically, and we will still, never fully understand. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't try. And, as believers, we should have a hunger for the Lord's voice and his word. So yeah, I finished with that. But yeah, so those are the books that I'm reading. Obviously, also, I'm reading the Bible as well. I'm going through Isaiah with one of my friends. Shout out, hey girl. But I'm going through Isaiah with one of my friends. And I've been through Isaiah before, but Isaiah is so good. Y'all, if you're intimidated by reading the Old Testament, number one, I would say don't be. And then maybe, actually, if you're intimidated, you should read more about honor and shame, because there's a lot in the Old Testament. But also, I would highly suggest reading Isaiah. I know it's really hard, and honestly, usually when I read the first couple chapters, I'm very confused, because there's a lot of like symbolism and like maybe metaphors, or like, is it hyperboles? I don't know grammar, but like a lot of complicated things in Isaiah, but it is so rich. And to think about when it was written, I forgot. I have it on this little sheet, but I can't remember. It was like 700, 800 BC. Maybe I'm totally off on that. I'm sorry. But it was a long time before the Lord came. Okay, several hundred years before he came. And there are already prophecies of him. Isn't that crazy? That's wild. That's how you know the Lord is real. The Spirit. Because those people, whoever wrote Isaiah didn't know, what was truly going to happen. Like that Jesus was going to come. Anyway, it's really good. I highly suggest you read it. It's very rich and it really encourages me, because to think that our God is so intentional, just by reading his scripture and how complicated it is, and to think that that's the same God that we're worshiping and glorifying now, and who's working out everything right now and throughout the entire world, which is crazy, for his glory. And somehow for our good as well. Although we have different definitions of good. But yeah, still for our good. Anyway, this episode is a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. But I think I covered, again, I keep saying we. Me and my multiple personalities. Just kidding. I covered a lot of great topics. So I'm excited to start this podcast again. And this is the first episode of season 2 of Living Intention. Bye, y'all.